Most of us think of pizza delivery as a simple, entry-level job.
You pick up the food, drop it off, and get a tip. But sometimes, the person opening the door isn't just hungry.
Sometimes they are hunting.
Welcome to the Whisper Archives, Volume 1. Tonight, we are counting down 5 true, terrifying pizza delivery stories.
That'll make you think twice before ordering late-night food.
Turn off the lights.
And let's begin.
There is a specific kind of dread that hits a delivery driver when the phone rings 5 minutes before closing. I was 18, working for a small, family-owned pizza joint in a town that was mostly woods and winding back roads. It was a Tuesday, dead silent, and I was already mentally checking out when the order printed in the kitchen. The address was on Blackwood Lane. My stomach immediately dropped. If you aren't from around here, you wouldn't know it, but Blackwood Lane isn't really a street. It's a narrow gravel path that cuts through the densest part of the forest, leading to old properties that haven't seen maintenance in decades. There are no streetlights, no cell service, just trees and darkness. I tried to tell my manager it was too far out, but he just waved the slip at me. Large pepperoni, cash on delivery. Just get it done so we can go home. The drive took 20 minutes. The further I drove, the taller the trees seemed to get, blocking out the moonlight until my high beams were the only thing cutting through the void. When the GPS finally announced, "You have arrived," I was confused. I wasn't looking at a house. I was looking at a ruin. The structure was massive, a 2-story Victorian-style home, but it was rotting. The siding was peeling off like dead skin, the porch was sagging, and the yard was overgrown with waist-high weeds that scraped against my car door. Every single window was boarded up or smashed. "This has to be a prank," I whispered to myself. I kept the engine running, leaving the headlights on. Against my better judgment, I grabbed the pizza warmer and stepped out. The air was dead silent. No crickets, no wind. Just a heavy, suffocating quiet. I walked up the cracking concrete path, avoiding the holes in the porch steps, and knocked on the heavy wooden door. Bang, bang, bang. The sound echoed, feeling like it was swallowed up by the house instantly. I waited. Nothing. "Pizza delivery," I called out, my voice cracking slightly. I waited another full minute. No lights flickered on inside, no footsteps creaking on floorboards. It was obviously abandoned. I felt a surge of irritation replacing my fear. Some kids probably thought it would be funny to send a driver out to the haunted house in the middle of the night. "Whatever," I muttered, turning around. "Joke's on you, I'm keeping the pizza." I walked back to my car, threw the bag into the passenger seat, and put the car in reverse. As I backed up to turn around, my headlights swept across the front of the house one last time. That's when I slammed on the brakes. On the second floor, in the only window that wasn't boarded up, someone was standing there. The glass was grimy and cracked, but I could clearly see a face pressing against it. It was pale, unnaturally white, like paper. But the worst part was the expression. It was smiling. A wide, unmoving, toothy grin that stretched way too far across its face. It wasn't waving. It wasn't moving. It was just staring directly into my headlights, directly at me. I didn't wait to see if it would move. I slammed my foot on the gas, fishtailing in the gravel, sending rocks flying as I sped out of there. I didn't look in the rearview mirror once. I drove 80 miles an hour all the way back to the shop, my heart hammering against my ribs like a bird trapped in a cage. When I got back, I threw the undelivered pizza on the counter and told my boss I quit. I didn't care about the paycheck. I didn't care about the explanation. All I knew was that the house was supposed to be empty, and whatever was up in that window wasn't human. I never delivered pizza at night again.
You know that feeling when the hairs on the back of your neck stand up? That primal instinct telling you to run before your brain even understands why? I ignored that feeling once, and it almost cost me my life. I was working the closing shift on the Thursday night. It was raining hard, the kind of heavy downpour that blurs your windshield and drowns out the world. I got an order for a duplex on the south side of town, a neighborhood known for being a little rough, but nothing I hadn't handled before. I pulled up to the house around 11:45 p.m. The porch light was busted and the lawn was overgrown. I grabbed the 2 large pizzas and the liter of soda, ducking my head against the rain as I jogged up the steps. I rang the doorbell. It didn't work, so I knocked. A few seconds later, the door creaked open just a crack. A man peeked out. He looked to be in his late 40s, wearing a dirty tank top with messy, unwashed hair. He didn't open the screen door. "Total is $24.50, I said, trying to be polite despite the creepy vibe. The man smiled, but it was weird. He was too wide, and his eyes were darting around behind me, looking at the street. "Hey, listen," he said, his voice raspy. "My wallet is on the kitchen table. I hurt my back earlier and I can't really bend down to grab these boxes. Can you just bring them inside for me?" I hesitated. Store policy was strict. Never enter a customer's home. "I can't do that, sir, but I can set them on this bench right here for you." He frowned, opening the main door a little wider. "Come on, kid, it's pouring rain. Just step inside the foyer and set them down. I've got a big tip for you." He stepped back, creating a space for me to enter. I took one step forward, intending to just reach in and drop the boxes on the floor mat, but then I stopped. Since he had opened the door wider, the angle of the hallway light shifted. There was a large hallway mirror hanging on the wall inside, reflecting the space directly behind the front door. In the reflection, I saw it. Pressed flat against the wall, hidden behind the door where I would have walked right past him, was another man. He was wearing a ski mask, and in his right hand he was gripping a metal baseball bat. He was coiled tight, ready to swing the second I stepped across the threshold. My heart literally stopped. The man at the door saw my eyes shift to the mirror. His instant vanished. "Get in here!" He lunged for my arm. I didn't think. I threw the hot pizza boxes directly into his face and spun around. I heard the pizzas hit the floor and the man scream in surprise, followed by the heavy thud of the second guy slamming the bat into the doorframe where my head had been a second ago. "Get him!" a voice screamed from inside. I sprinted to my car faster than I ever have in my life. I fumbled with the keys, my hands shaking violently as I heard heavy boots stomping down the porch steps. I managed to jam the key in the ignition and gunned it just as they reached the sidewalk. I sped through 3 red lights before I finally pulled over and called 911. The police checked the house later, but it was empty. It turned out to be a foreclosure. Squatters had broken in just to lure a delivery driver there. I realized that night that they weren't hungry for pizza. They were hunting for a victim. I never delivered pizza at night again. Most people think the hardest part of delivering pizzas is dealing with traffic or bad tips. They're wrong. The hardest part is the instructions. You get used to the weird ones. Sing happy birthday, draw a wizard on the box. But sometimes you get a note that makes the hair on your arms stand up before you even leave the store. It was a slow Tuesday night, around 1 a.m. I was the only driver left on the clock. A ticket printed out for a delivery deep in the suburbs, a neighborhood known for big houses and long driveways. I ripped the slip off the machine and read the special instructions. In all caps, it read, "Do not knock or ring bell, baby sleeping. Walk around to detached garage in back, leave on workbench." It seemed specific but reasonable enough. I grabbed the order, a meat lovers and a side of wings, and headed out. The house was one of those sprawling ranch-style places, set way back from the road behind a thick pine trees. When I pulled into the driveway, the main house was pitch black. Not a single porch light, not a flicker of a TV screen. It looked like nobody had lived there for years.
I killed the engine and grabbed the thermal bag. The silence was heavy. You know that kind of silence? The kind that feels like pressure in your ears. I walked up the driveway, bypassing the front door, and headed toward the detached garage in the backyard. The gravel crunched loudly under my sneakers, so I stepped onto the grass to keep quiet, remembering the note about the sleeping baby. As I rounded the corner of the house, I saw the garage. The side door was propped open about 6 inches, spilling a sliver of dim yellow light onto the wet grass. I approached the door, ready to just slide the pizza inside and leave. But as I got closer, a metallic copper smell hit me. It smelled like rusty pipes. I reached the door and pushed it open just a little more to find the workbench. That's when I froze. The garage wasn't set up for a workshop. The floor was covered in plastic tarps. In the corner, piled haphazardly near a utility sink, was a bundle of clothes. A man's white dress shirt was on top, but it wasn't white anymore. It was soaked in a deep, dark crimson. My breath caught in my throat. I stood paralyzed, staring at the stained fabric. Then I heard it. From the dark corner of the garage, behind a stack of crates, came a sound. It was a wet, rhythmic thud, drag, thud, drag, like someone pulling something heavy across the concrete. "Hello?" I whispered, the word escaping before I could stop it. The dragging sound stopped instantly. The silence that followed was 1,000 times worse than the noise. I didn't wait to see who or what was in that corner. My fight or flight kicked in, and I chose flight. I dropped the pizza bag right there in the doorway and sprinted back to my car. I didn't care about the noise anymore. I scrambled into the driver's seat, locked the doors, and tore out of that driveway so fast I almost put the car in a ditch. I called the cops from a gas station 3 miles away. They told me later that the house was a rental, but the current tenants had moved out weeks ago. They found the pizza, but the garage was swept clean. No plastic, no clothes, no people. To this day, I don't know what I walked into, but I know I interrupted something that wasn't meant to be seen. I never delivered pizza at night again. There's a rule among delivery drivers. If you think you're being followed, make 3 right turns. If the car is still behind you after that, it's not a coincidence. I learned that rule during training, but I never thought I'd actually have to use it. It was a Friday night, closing in on 2 a.m. I had just dropped off a large order at a house way out in the sticks. One of those rural areas where the houses are a mile apart and there were absolutely no streetlights. The delivery went fine, but the drive back to the shop was about 15 minutes of pure darkness. I was cruising down a narrow 2-lane road, listening to a podcast, when I first noticed the headlights in my rearview mirror. I hadn't seen a single car for miles, so their sudden appearance startled me. They were bright, high beams that flooded my entire cabin with blinding white light. I squinted, flipping my rearview mirror to the night setting, but the glare was still intense. The car was tailgating me, riding inches from my bumper. "Jerk," I muttered, tapping my brakes to signal them to back off or pass. They didn't back off, they didn't pass. They just matched my speed perfectly. I started to get a bad feeling in my gut. I sped up to 50. The headlights surged forward instantly, keeping that same aggressive distance. I slowed down to 25. They slowed down, refusing to overtake me. My heart started to pound. Up ahead, there was a turnoff for an old industrial park loop. I hit my blinker and took a sharp right. The car behind me turned right. I drove a block and took another right. They took the second right. My hands were sweating against the steering wheel now. I took the third right, circling back toward the main road. As I completed the turn, I looked in the mirror. The headlights were still there, burning into my eyes. "Okay," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Okay." Panic set in. I floored it. I pushed my beat-up sedan as hard as it would go, hitting 70 on a 40-mile-per-hour road. The car behind me, a large blacked-out SUV, kept up effortlessly. It was like a predator playing with its food. At one point, they surged forward and actually bumped my rear bumper, sending a jolt through my spine. They weren't trying to pass me. They were trying to run me off the road. I realized I couldn't outrun them, so I had to outsmart them. I knew the county police station was about 4 miles up the main road. I kept my foot on the gas, running a red light at a deserted intersection, praying no one would T-bone me. The SUV was right on my tail, so close I couldn't even see their grille anymore. As soon as I saw the blue sign for the police station, I yanked the wheel to the left, tires screeching, and drifted into the precinct parking lot, laying on my horn the entire time. The second my car crossed into the lot, the SUV slammed on its brakes, skidded, and peeled away down the dark road, disappearing into the night. I sat in my car in front of the station for an hour, shaking so hard I couldn't unlock my phone. I gave a statement to the officers, but they never found the black SUV. I don't know who was driving or what they planned to do to me on that dark country road if I had pulled over, but I wasn't going to stick around to find out. I quit the next morning. I never delivered pizza at night again. I've saved this story for last because it is the single reason I walked away from the job and never looked back. It wasn't a ghost and it wasn't a prank. It was real, and it was the closest I have ever come to dying. It was a Saturday night, the busiest shift of the week. I was sent to a house in a wealthy, quiet cul-de-sac. It was the kind of neighborhood where people leave their doors unlocked and trust their neighbors. I pulled up to a large 2-story brick house. The lights were on in the living room, and I could faintly hear the sound of a television. It looked completely normal. I grabbed the 2 large pepperonis and walked up the long driveway. The wind was biting cold that night, whistling through the decorative bushes. I remember shivering, eager to get back to the heater in my car. I rang the doorbell and waited. Almost immediately, way too fast actually, the door swung open. Standing there was a man in a flannel shirt and jeans. He looked normal at first glance, but then I looked at his face. He was smiling, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was a wide, rigid, ear-to-ear grin that showed way too many teeth. His eyes weren't smiling though. They were wide open, unblinking, staring right through me. He didn't say a word. He just stood there, blocking the doorway, breathing heavily through his nose. Good evening, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Total is $32.50. The man didn't blink. He just kept that frozen plastic smile plastered on his face. He slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out a wad of crumpled cash. His movements were jerky, unnatural. He held the money out to me. I reached out to take it, wanting to get out of there as fast as humanly possible. As my fingers brushed the bills, his hand suddenly shot forward and clamped around my wrist. His grip was like iron. It was ice cold. "Come inside," he whispered. His voice sounded wet and guttural. "We're hungry." He yanked my arm with terrifying strength, pulling me off balance toward the dark hallway behind him. I dropped the pizzas and slammed my other hand against the doorframe to stop myself from being dragged in. I looked past him for a split second and saw a pair of legs lying motionless on the living room floor. Adrenaline exploded in my veins. I screamed, kicked him in the shin as hard as I could, and ripped my arm free. I didn't wait to see his reaction. I sprinted to my car, fumbling with my keys, convinced I was going to feel a knife in my back at any second. I locked the doors and peeled out of the cul-de-sac, calling 911 before I even reached the main road. The police swarmed the house within 10 minutes. I found out the next day on the news what they found. The man who answered the door wasn't the homeowner. He was a drifter who had broken in hours earlier. The real homeowner, the man I saw on the floor, had been murdered before the pizza was even ordered. The killer had ordered the food using the dead man's phone just to lure someone else into the house. If I hadn't pulled my arm free, I would have been next on that floor. I never delivered pizza at night again.